Welcome to RightScale Connect. My name is Mark Brown. I work at Microsoft. I'm in the Windows Azure product team, and I do community stuff and partners, just marketing, I guess, in general. I have with me Patrick McClory.
Hi, Patrick. I'm one of the professional services solutions architects, so I'm responsible for building out solutions for our clients and working with some of the more difficult pieces of work that come our way. So,
great. So today we're going to talk about Windows Azure, our cloud platform, plus RightScale for doing automation and development testing, DevOps. Really talking about kind of doing agile IT using our cloud platform and the RightScale tooling. Is this thing? There it goes.
There we go. Cool.
So, some of the common challenges, if you're working at a company or in the IT department, or if you're a developer and you're trying to do things like Agile IT or do DevOps and manage things like continuous integration, continuous deployment, kind of boils down to three things. One is you want to be able to automate stuff that you have to do over and over and over again, right? It takes people, it takes time, it takes energy, costs money. The second thing is you need visibility into not only what you have, but what's running. And not only what's running, but what's on it. Just to help you kind of get a handle on your whole infrastructure and to try and drive those types of efficiencies through your organization. So it's lowering cost, reducing the amount of time, right? That's really what the notion of like DevOps really comes down to, your Agile IT, is driving for that efficiency, right? Trying to get those barriers out of the way, the blockages out of the way. So today during our talk, we'll have kind of two pieces of this thing. I want to introduce to you, let me ask a question first, show of hands. Who here is using or tried Windows Azure, the cloud platform? Okay. Who here is, okay, I guess so the ones that didn't raise their hand or have not tried it, are those people using AWS today? Who here is, let me ask you a better question. Who here is using some cloud platform? Okay. Okay. So I'm going to give you an introduction into Windows Azure, and we'll talk about some of the features and benefits of that that helps really build kind of Agile IT within your organization. And then we'll talk about the tooling and the automation and everything that RightScale combined with Windows Azure brings to that equation. So let's start with Windows Azure Infrastructure Services. So we just went GA on all of our infrastructure services here in the, what's going on here with this thing? Here, no, that's not right either. Okay, I'm going to do it manual. I was trying to be cool and use a clicker, but that doesn't really work, I guess. Okay, my build is not working, so anyway, what this is supposed to show you is, man, I'm used to like demos failing for code and connectivity. I'm not used to like my PowerPoints failing to compile. Okay. Whatever on the slides, I don't really care. They're just background. I could have pictures of kittens up there for all I care. I'll just talk. So we just went to GA just on April 6th with our Windows Azure Infrastructure Services. And there's kind of three main components to all of that. First is virtual machines. So we have availability for multiple versions of Windows operating system server, 2008 and 2012. In addition to that, we now have validated and supported additional workloads on there. So things we've been getting requests for from customers is, I want to be able to spin up SQL Server right out of there in multiple versions of that, or SharePoint, or BizTalk Server, which is kind of our integration server within there. So we now have all of those different workloads available within there. And then in addition to that, we also have three flavors of Linux OS available right within the gallery. So this is right within the portal. The second major component that we have available is our virtual networking. So this allows you to create basically a software-defined network amongst all of the instances or all of the resources that you're defining, virtual machines, on Windows Azure And then you can combine that with other things like our Direct Connect, which will allow you to connect all the resources you've just provisioned in the cloud directly into your corporate on-premises network. So if I go and spin up new Windows machines, those to me sitting at my desk in my office would look like they're inside my corporate network, but they're actually running out on Azure. Other things as well is once you've got that kind of connectivity, you can use things like Active Directory to do ID and authentication. So users that have to use their corporate credentials to log in to gain access to resources or authentication to use resources can do the same thing, but for those resources that are now sitting out on a cloud infrastructure. Is this thing just running by itself now? Okay, I'll tell you what. It's my fault. Actually, it worked fine on my machine. I'm going to say that. We put it on Patrick's machine, and then it stopped working. So just like code itself, dude, it worked on my machine. So, well, all right. So I'm going to get out of slideware. So I think the easiest way.
Move that over for you.
What's that? Oh, I see. Okay. Forget the slides. Let's just show you what it looks like. So this is our new portal. Actually, not new. We've had this out for about a year now since we launched all the new services that we have in preview. And here you can see in here, I got a bunch of stuff in here. I've got some services, some websites, some storage accounts, virtual networks, an Active Directory. So I'm going to go in here, and where is my mouse? There you are. Let's just go, and we'll go in, and I'm going to create a new virtual machine in here, and I'll do it out of our gallery. And then here you can see different workloads, so different products. So we've got 2 versions of Windows Server on here, BizTalk, SQL Server, SharePoint, and then of course you can see we've got multiple flavors of Ubuntu in here, multiple flavors of SUSE, and an OpenLogic. So I can go and spin it up. What do I select? Here, let's create a, yeah, this will work fine. So hopefully that's a good name. Hopefully it likes my password. Okay, and I'll just create a little small core here. So pretty easy, just walk right through, give it the information you need. Oops, actually. Yeah, that's fine. So that'll go and spin that up right there. Another thing I can do as well, we have the availability for the Linux machines in there, but you can actually go, whoops, and we have a new feature called VM Depot. So VM Depot, there we are, has about 200, all right, now where is it?
Pop on the other monitor.
There it goes. About 200 different packages, all pre-built, pre-configured, optimized workloads for Linux. So things like Solar on here, you've got pre-configured Drupal, Django, LampStack, pretty much anything. There's Jenkins, Joomla, Moodle, MediaWiki, and LAMP servers running Nginx instead of Apache. So a whole ton of different stuff on here. All pre-built, configured, community contributed in here as well. And if you want, you can go and create your own images and spin them in here. And then you can essentially just select one of these and tell it what region you want it in. And then we'll copy that blob image over, put it into your storage account, and now you can go and spin that up either within the portal or from a shell script or PowerShell or our CLI tools. So I just wanted to give you, that copy image didn't work. All right. I'm not having much luck with anything today, actually, am I? So, all right. Patrick, I need your help getting back to slides now,
Absolutely.
I guess.
Start from there?
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so the slide version of this is how this works, right? So log into the portal, just create a new VM from the gallery. We copy that image, that VHD, to your storage account, and then we go ahead and boot the thing, turn writing onto the disk. You can also bring your own. So if you run workloads in virtual environments on VHDs in your own data center, just upload those into there, put them into Blob Storage, and then go ahead and create a disk in the VM in the Azure Portal, and then go and spin that up, just as if it was in our gallery within there. And then there's VM Depot I just talked about there. Another thing as well is it doesn't have to just be VHDs. You can actually also take virtual machines created with VMware. All right, I got some weird thing going on here. Yeah, whatever. With VMware, and then we have a tool called the Microsoft Virtual Machine Converter that can take that VMware image and then convert that over to a VHD, and then you can just use PowerShell, upload that into Azure, and then spin that thing up as well. So we want to make things as open as possible for you to run the workloads you're running now. One thing I'll say is with the virtual machines we have in GA now, we have triple replication for the VMs that you're going and creating in there, and that's with geo-replication, so not just within a data center, but we'll replicate it out hundreds of miles away. So if something bad happens in a data center somewhere, you'll have extra durability with the VMs that you're running within there with this feature here. We're really into no lock-in and the flexibility and portability. So let's just say you've got some VMs in your data center and you want to go ahead and run those up into Azure, as I just showed you. But you can also take VMs that you've created in Azure and workloads you've built in Azure and move those back on premises if you want. You can even take this to another degree, and if you've got other service providers that have support for VHD and our hypervisor, you can take those and run those over there as well. So we really want to include, or really want to have kind of a no lock-in and high fidelity on premises, off premises, and I think RightScale really kind of helps add to that and support that. And then kind of one of the last things I'll talk about is just automation and advanced management. So being all around the agile IT and being around speaking around the DevOps thing, we have great tools for being able to manage that stuff. I mean, a portal is great for showing a demo when you have connectivity to it, I guess. Actually, it's better than PowerPoint. But we also have great tools through our PowerShell to provide automation and advanced management, and also through CLI tools or cross-platform CLI tools that we've written that are in Node.js and work on Mac, work on Linux. But these tools are great for providing automation around virtual machines, so being able to query the state of those virtual machines or manage sets of them, configure them, managing your storage across multiple subscriptions or across multiple accounts, being able to do multiple tier deployments. So if you have a multi-tier web app, you can script that entire thing out and then just execute the thing. With virtual machines, being able to configure not just the VMs itself and create new VMs and delete them and migrate them, but also configure the storage for those things, the networking for them, doing domain join for those VMs when you want to be able to connect to those things from your on-premises data center or your employees. Things like remote management, so you can use PowerShell to do remoting into those machines running up on Windows Azure from your desktop. And then, of course, using PowerShell to bring your own VM, so using PowerShell to upload those VHDs into Azure or copying disk. You can use it for virtual network functions, so configuring your virtual network front to back, managing the gateway configuration, doing the direct connect to on-premises networks, and then things like for storage, so just being able to upload, download all your VHDs or blobs within there, copying those things between those, that sort of thing. And then for RightScale, I'll have Patrick kind of come up here and talk a little bit about some of the automation stuff within RightScale running on top of Azure as well.
Certainly. So when we start looking at using RightScale on top of Azure, we really start to take automation from getting your instance ready to go, getting you from a boot-ready state to an operational state. So that's all of the configuration that goes on top of just having an instance running. You can scale on demand using our auto-scaling utilities. And beyond that, it's not simply a single server template. It's not just a single server that exists. There's this idea of versioning of those assets. So long term, you're able to roll back and roll forward as you begin to develop these and continue to refine them. So the idea of automation isn't simply the idea of getting a machine ready and in place, but building it into an operational state versus simply an on-off switch type of state. So alongside that, when we look at managing these consistently with server templates, as you guys have seen, if you're familiar with the RightScale platform at all, those server templates give you an immense amount of remote management and hands-off capabilities. And using PowerShell, we're able to not only utilize some of the functions that our engineering team has used, but also take advantage of the tools that the Windows Azure team has built and really bring all of that into one place and take advantage of that from one platform. These things are ready to go. We have hundreds of server templates in our dashboard that are ready to deploy common technologies. The big ones for RightScale right now, we have IaaS server templates, SQL server templates, a base server template to start from, as well as an Active Directory server template for Windows that we can deploy directly into Azure, hit a button, set some inputs, and we've got a deployment that's ready to go. We've got servers that are functioning within a short period of time. And then on top of that, our dashboard adds a layer of security. So you can grant additional access layers or set additional access layers for different users. So in that DevOps perspective, you can give your developers some access or some level of access to certain assets inside of your IaaS solution, your Azure solution, but you don't necessarily need to give them access to all of it. And we offer an OAuth and SSO compliant login solution with compliance logging behind that. So there's some great security features involved with that. So we're going to take a look at a really concrete example. I'm going to ask another show of hands question real quick. How many of you guys have done a 3-tier deployment solution or 3-tier deployment tutorial in RightScale ever? I mean, it's one of the first things that we tell our clients to check out if they've got some time. You can do it in Linux or Windows. And I'm going to show you a really concrete example of putting one of these into action using RightScale, the .NET API, the .NET framework, along with an API wrapper that the Professional Services Group has written as an open source package, and Windows Workflow Foundation. And we're going to deploy all this into Windows Azure. So quick little workflow overview to orient you to what we're going to see in just a sec. We're going to perform 5 basic steps left to right here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import server templates. So we're going to need to bring server templates into our account that exist and are published, that are ready to go. Next, what we need to do is create a container. So we need to create a deployment to run in. We're going to create those servers themselves and set some inputs. And we're going to go ahead and launch them. And once those servers are done and launched and in a ready state, we're going to do some final configuration. And we should see an application running. So just another code level of example, and this will all be available. We're going to publish these slides afterwards, and if you're interested in checking them out, and we've got links to all the code as well. The call itself to launch a server using this wrapper that the services group has developed is really one line. It's right here, server.launch. So we're really encapsulating a lot of the complexity that gets involved with calling the RightScale API with this wrapper, so that it's a simple call and it's easy to manage, and there's a lot of flexibility in that. You certainly can make it as complicated as you'd like to. But in this case, we're going to keep it very simple and launch our servers using a wrapper that's built for Windows Workflow Foundation. And again, this is all available on GitHub. I'm going to glance right over this slide and get to the demo real quick. These are links, and you can go check them out. There are 3 components. There's the core library. There's the activity library, which is the plugin for Windows Workflow Foundation. And then there's the workflow project, which is just a little console app that kicks off a workflow job. So if you caught me earlier, you saw that I was playing around with Visual Studio on an instance sitting in remote desktop. And what I've got here is a very large, and unfortunately for the screen, not very easy to see at scale.
You guys in the back room can totally see that, right?
Yeah, I totally get that from the back, right?
Just checking.
Workflow that runs all of those activities you saw in that earlier slide with a little bit more detail. Now, if you're familiar with Windows Workflow Foundation, there's a number of built-in pieces. Here we are using try catch. So this is a try catch block, which is a built-in feature in Windows Workflow Foundation. Sequence while loops. We're able to take all of those features from Windows Workflow Foundation and then add in a custom set of tools for RightScale. So all of these launch SQL Server items are drag and droppable. And since this is running, I can't play with that at the moment because it is locked. But you're able to pull things from the toolbox like a launch server activity or a update inputs activity and just drop it right into your workflow. You'll also notice that we have 4 sort of parallel activities going on. That's our server launches. And once all 4 of those complete, we go ahead and get into our configuration steps, which we'll see right here. So you'll see here we've got import, create deployment, create servers, and some inputs. Our parallel launch, which launches 4 different types of servers. And then at the bottom of that, we come back into setting load balancer information for DNS and setting up SQL Server mirroring.
So you want to describe what you're launching right here? What's running right now?
So right now, I've got this console application. I'm going to open up RightScale and show you what's going on in the RightScale dashboard.
Yeah, you can kill that.
I'm actually going to log in as well. So give me just a second. I'm going to log Mark out, and I'm going to log in there in just a moment. So this is the RightScale dashboard. I've got this Azure Virtual Machine demo. And you'll see I timestamped this at 11:43:06, which was about 20 minutes ago. So you'll see here that we've got a number of servers running. We've got 2 load balancers that are already up. We've got a server that's being launched. So right now we are in the launch phase. We're waiting for the launches to complete and the servers to become operational. Just to show you as well, in this process, we configured a number of inputs at the deployment and the server level. And you'll see this guy is set up with a couple of different inputs to create a DB user as well as to restore the database for the application. That is not the case for the second SQL Server, which is going to be set up as our mirror. And I'll just show you that really quick to prove the point that we've done a bit of very specific input manipulation for this guy. And you'll see here we've got no DB login name and password, so we're not doing any of that work for this server. So we have about 10 minutes until this is going to complete. This is going to continue to run, and in the background on my remote machine here, we've got this console app that's just kicking out log entries every 20 seconds or so to check the status of the server to see when it becomes operational to run some additional scripts. But all of the work that gets done for you to manually do that 3-tier deployment for Windows is happening within this workflow. And we just lost video. Awesome. So while we're waiting for that to pop back up, the point here is that we're taking a number of well-known technologies and we're just wrapping the RightScale process and we're enabling all that stuff. And it's really a technical term, that stuff. Everything you can do in RightScale via the 1.5 API is now something that you can take on with your normal tools within .NET. And that includes PowerShell, that includes MS Build, that includes Windows Workflow Foundation. So I think at this point we want to kind of tackle a couple of key scenarios, and as we get into this, what I'd like to just double back on here as well is that in this situation with our deployment, as we start talking about dev test, one of those key concepts is the idea of environment management. So I've automatically created this environment. If I needed to create a clone of this, I need to create a copy of my production environment, bring it down for test purposes. Within RightScale, it's really not as simple as cloning my server, but at the deployment level, I can clone an entire deployment, modify some inputs, and relaunch it. So we're able to take that entire configuration that I set up painstakingly in Windows Workflow Foundation and replicate that over to another deployment for me to manipulate and give out to a dev team who needs to debug an issue in production or something along those lines. So some real power that the RightScale platform adds at a dashboard level as well as at the API level. And we'll let me get the PowerPoint back up here, but we're going to start talking a little bit more about
I'm scared of that PowerPoint.
You're scared of the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of it too. The unfortunate part is there's like 2 slides in here that are, meaningfully, important from a visual perspective.
I seriously would rather we just be debugging code right here on stage.
We might be.
I'm gonna debug Power. You got Visual C on there? I'll start debugging PowerPoint.
Unfortunately, I do.
Fantastic.
So let me get this back up. I think when we lost the monitor, we lost the ability to project to it.
No.
There we go.
Phew. Okay. So that was really cool, just seeing RightScale, being able to automate all that stuff in there. And not only that, I mean, just seeing it within Visual Studio. I know developers, I think I like that stuff, right? Or just being able to write code to move servers and launch stuff. So I wanted to, there's kind of really 2 key scenarios really we're trying to focus on and really want to drive home with you. Really, the first one around the dev test scenario there. Like he just showed, being able to create an entire deployment and then get that thing up and running as he showed you in the window, and then with one single button push clone, right, and being able to replicate that entire thing over. I mean, those are really cool innovations where on top of Windows Azure, I think you can really enable some of the key scenarios you need to do if you're going to go and start building and executing this Agile IT type of environment. The availability for having resources on demand through a RightScale console and being able to talk to Windows Azure right within there, or the standard configurations they've got for all these different workloads within Windows Azure for Windows workloads or Linux workloads, and then having the consistency for all those different environments. That's really key, right? If you really want to get something into production that's going to work as designed or function as designed. All those things really help reduce the cost associated with all this, right? And running a really large infrastructure for your cloud. And then the other is, there we go, kind of this whole software development lifecycle environment management. Patrick, you want to talk about kind of the next layer, I guess, or the next level of where you can go with this?
Yeah, so once you've got the ability to replicate environments and play around with a test environment or taking your production back into dev, you really can start using this tool set inside of your entire software development lifecycle. So rather than looking at changing applications from environment to environment, which for a lot of smaller IT shops is pretty common, having to recompile for that connection string or having to reconfigure manually those specific tasks that have to happen because either it's on a local machine or it's on a server. The idea here is we want to enable the process of taking that application without any major changes, only working with configuration changes, and replicate environment to environment, building a promotion strategy from dev to test to integration out into production or staging in production. And we want to give you the tool set to do that within the tools that you use today. So things like PowerShell, things like .NET, being able to enable those types of tools for your everyday work, is key for an SDLC to be successful. And then I think I'll say it a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but DevOps is really going to become that collaboration between core IT, who manages your production environment, and the dev teams who want control over those local environments. So the shadow IT concept, the idea that you've got a group of people who have a cloud account, and we're doing all of our work over on the side, and then all of a sudden it becomes IT's problem to get into production. Being able to put all of this in one place, with Azure, with RightScale, enables that to be more of a collaborative effort in one platform.
And even really using things like a RightScale that can take the complexity out of all that infrastructure management and push it straight down into the hands of your developers themselves, right? I mean, if you could even get to a point where you can say, if you build it, you're going to run it, right? Because now you've got all the tools available to be able to set up the dev and test and all the configuration, all the deployment, all that stuff, really at your hand, at your fingertips, right there. So I think that's the kind of ultimate nirvana, as I see around the whole DevOps thing is I'm the developer, I code the thing, I test the thing, I deploy the thing, I run the thing, and not taking out IT as part of that equation, but bringing them so close together that they're like kissing. That's really a disturbing thought, isn't it?
Well,
maybe they're just shoulder to shoulder or something like that.
I think I'll stand over here now.
All right, thanks. I'll go over here. Anyway, so as I mentioned at the beginning of our talk, so Azure has just gone into GA, so we've got a ton of cool new things now available with Windows Azure to go and take and use in production environments. We've got high memory instances now available, so 2 new instances we've got available with high memories. Monthly SLA on virtual machines. It's not an annual SLA, it's a monthly SLA, so that thing kicks in right away. Monthly SLA on the virtual networking as well, and of course, world-class 24/7 support and a variety of plans that will suit your needs. The validate and supported workloads, as I mentioned, things like SQL Server and SharePoint Server and BizTalk Server, that will, you've got basically one call you can make to get support on all that stuff. And in fact, if you're a complete .NET shop, you've got one call to make for everything from the tool to the frameworks to the servers now to the cloud for everything. So it's really, you've got one place to go for everything. Price reduction, I don't know if you followed the news, but we said we would match Amazon on the compute and storage for pricing. So for us that meant, and this is starting at the beginning of June, so 22% reduction and a 29% reduction, 22% for Windows and 29% for Linux starting on June 1st. And I mentioned VM Depot for 200 plus pre-configured Linux workloads and images available in there. And then we've also made some changes for our MSDN and Microsoft partners as well, for developers that are going and using MSDN subscriptions to build on our stack.
Yeah, I actually want to make a really big point of that, and I'm glad that Dan's in the room because I actually work for Dan in the RightScale scheme of things. But I went to Dan about 3 months ago and I said, Dan, I've got to spend some money because I needed to work on this demo that you saw, the workflow demo. So I figured I'd need some resources. There was an allotment of 1,500 compute hours, and I said, there's going to be a month or two that I go over. Surprisingly, this is my bill from about an hour and a half ago. I owe Microsoft nothing because I'm taking advantage of that MSDN subscription. So the 30 or so cycles through this test set that I ran, I've run this workflow 30, 35 times in the last couple days. It's not registering as using any more resources.
How many of you guys have MSDN subscriptions? How many of you have activated Azure on your MSDN subscriptions?
Yeah,
this is definitely less. So
he kept $1,500.
You did?
I did not keep the $1,500.
Happy hour for Patrick after this, immediately after this session,
Mark.
I think, right? So you're going to turn you into a marketing guy.
So as we add RightScale to this, I just want to make a point of really getting you from an IT perspective to responding to a business requirement quickly using that pre-configured, pre-built solution inside of RightScale. Whether it's utilizing something like a Windows Workflow Foundation job to templatize your entire setup, or you're simply just leveraging those server templates in and of themselves to optimize your process. You're going to manage and optimize your cost, personnel-wise, just by utilizing that, but also the ability to turn on and turn off those resources, to scale up and scale down on demand and based on need is going to help you manage costs. And then streamlining that process and developing that cloud expertise is really what our professional services and our support teams are there for, to help you learn how to leverage the cloud, not just use your solution like use Azure like you were using your Hyper-V on premises or your VMware on premises, but really embrace the concept of cloud and what it brings for you, and launch you out into that experience with a good solid standing. So just got a couple of next steps here.
Yep. So for those of you that don't have an MSDN or haven't tried Azure yet, definitely go and sign up. 90-day free trial. Get in there, kick the tires. There's lots to see. There's a ton of services in there. And then for RightScale.
And RightScale, we offer a 60-day free trial, so you should check that out if you're not already on it. I think the majority of you guys are. But there's also a free layer or a free account level where you get 2,000 RCUs, which is a compute unit that we measure our server usage by. 2,000 per month, and you can check out rightscale.com/Azure for more details on how to sign up for that. We'll check the demo here in just a sec to see if it finished coming up. But while I'm doing that, do you guys have any questions? Do you guys want to? You have any thoughts? Any you want to add?
So my name is Mandeep, and I'm from 3M Health Industries. Question for you is, I'm doing a proof of concept with Azure, and incidentally just came 2 days before, just while I was flying over here, and while the time I landed in San Francisco, my boss told me that, you know what, we should try and look at the Azure side of cloud deployments. The first thing that question has, my shop is not at all Microsoft-centric. It's purely kind of Linux shop, Java-oriented, a couple of .NET applications there too. So I'm trying to have 4 different phases of getting Azure done. First is building the network side, which is secure network, all network stuff. Second is security and compliance, very essential for me because I come from health industry, and if you're going to pay, you're a patient, you don't want to disclose your stuff, which is called HIPAA compliance. Third is monitoring, which is usually RightScale has it. So my question is, what kind of solutions Azure has for security and compliances? Not like login from the login perspective, but ensuring that data is secure.
Sure.
Second is monitoring, all the alerts, and I do definitely see RightScale has an embedded solution, but what does Azure has on top? Because we are using Azure for one example and for one of our application, and we are not so very happy with the way their dashboard is and the support stuff looks like. But I heard there was some of your representative went to St. Paul, Minneapolis, and he said that you guys have made a lot of changes, and my boss was pretty impressed with that, and he wanted us to try. And so the question is security compliances and the monitoring. What are the solutions you guys already have embedded in the Azure that I don't have to reinvent the wheel to get that thing done?
Right. So for the security compliance, are you asking specifically about HIPAA?
Just talk about security compliance, anything.
So I'm not an expert at the security compliance stuff, but I know if you can, where's the browser? You just kick open, just go to windowsazure.com. I want to direct you to support, and then on the left there is, the Trust Center. So within here, you can kind of learn quite a bit about all of our compliance around HIPAA or SOC compliance or all the other certifications that we're going, ISO 27001 or whatever the heck that one's called. So you could probably get a ton of information in there around that. I'm not really your compliance expert in there, and that's we have one guy that's all he does is all the compliance stuff, so I wish I could answer your question better, but I definitely would be happy to connect with you afterwards, and I can get answers for all the questions you have, or I'll go straight to that guy and
Sure.
get you verbatim responses.
One serendipitous folks, we have to have Phil Cox here. Yeah. RightScale.
Oh, so that guy's probably talked to my guy.
Our security expert, yes.
Yeah.
I have a voice that carries, so I think you guys can probably hear me. But, okay, recording. So anyway, anybody like to grab Phil for a sidebar, please feel free. He's our security guy.
How we doing, Phil? Good. Yeah, okay. See, he says all right, so.
Compliance you're going to talk about tomorrow, I guess, is this one?
Oh.
Yeah, so.
And then your other thing around kind of the diagnostics, so we don't have kind of end solutions for doing all of the monitoring, diagnostics and stuff, but we've got a massive API for doing, basically allowing you to do all the monitoring within there. So right now, it's more or less, you may have to build it if you want to do your own homegrown. I think there's a small but rapidly growing number of partners that are building solutions to do the monitoring within there as well. You can look forward to us adding some richness, if you will, and some more capabilities natively within the portal, and also just more accessible to developers and IT managers around monitoring and diagnostics within Azure itself. So right now there's a bit of a gap where it's, you've got to go build it yourself. We've got minimal monitoring within the portal, and then you've got very dedicated vendors and partners who are going and building that stuff. And then there's this big gap in between. What you're going to see is kind of this in terms of kind of the gap between those two over I'd say the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, and I want to make a point as well. There are some mutual partners that we have. Two of them that come to mind are App Dynamics and I believe that New Relic is actually downstairs. They offer application level monitoring that's much more sophisticated than...
In fact, you can go and actually purchase New Relic straight out of the Windows Azure Portal. In fact, I'm waiting for these guys. We've got to get you guys in there as well. So with a lot of those parts, and App Dynamics, you can actually go and purchase directly out of the Windows Azure Portal. So we try to make a very nice, seamless experience where you're within your subscription, and then you can go ahead and purchase that, and then they can go and get your subscription information within there, and then start providing monitoring services for you within there. So, okay, another question?
Can you talk a little bit more about the dev tests and the SDLC use case? For example, when you talk about development, being able to take environment back, is it just launching brand new workload, which is not really the case? You really want to actually capture the state when the error took place and then send it back. So can you actually do what? Because RightScale is great at creating clones, but this is more about not just taking clones, but really copying the actual thing that happened and then moving it back to an environment, right? Which is what I think Mark showed with his pictures about how you can go from between data center and the cloud. Can you guys talk a little bit more about an actual use case of how customers actually do dev tests, with RightScale and Azure together?
So my understanding right now is Hyper-V within Azure doesn't give you that ability to stop a VM in its tracks and then basically copy that and then go replay, like you can if you were doing it on premises. We're getting there. We know our customers need to go do that, to go take, say, I have this application running, basically snapshot that whole thing right then and there, download the thing on-prem, and then replay it from there. Can't do it yet, but we are working and getting there with that. I don't know. Unless you guys...
There are some manual workarounds that you could take and using something like that workflow engine that I was showing you and things like the virtual machine capture process inside of Windows Azure. You could technically capture those images, reboot the machines and capture an image, pull those down and relaunch them. It would be quite complicated at this point.
Not the same thing as I think is what you're asking.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be a replay. It would capture potentially the state of the machines at that point, but not the exact error state.
So in other words, you guys are really just talking about just cloning the environment. So here's a development environment. I build it on-prem. I want my QA guys to test it off-prem, let's say on Azure. Then I can recreate the same thing on Azure using RightScale. Sure. But so that's what you guys are really more talking about.
Or I've got an app that's deployed in production. It's exhibiting some really weird behavior. I can replay the inputs into that thing, possibly. So I'm going to snapshot that production environment into something in another cloud environment or on premises, and then attempt to repro that error condition with the complete snapshot of the production environment to see if I can get it to do it again.
Right. So you actually captured the input as well. Is that what you just
Not
said?
the input. You'd have to go and script up to make it bust again or whatever, but or to repro whatever behavior you're trying to get it to exhibit. But at least you can capture everything right then and there that's deployed in that environment, data, code, everything, and then try and see if you can repro. So that's one example, right? And then of course you've got your traditional dev and stage and test, right, to make sure that you've got consistency between all those environments.
So you can actually take the snapshot of that whole environment without shutting anything down.
Well, it's what you're snapshotting. At this point, we wouldn't be talking about snapshotting machine images. We'd be talking about all of the other assets related. So the application, the database, we can grab that and put them into a different environment. It may not, there may be an environmental issue that's related to that. So we would grab all the inputs, like Mark said.
You're not snapshotting is a bad word because it implies that you're basically capturing everything in volatile memory at that point, right?
That's not reproducing.
That's not what you're doing, basically, right? Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All right, more questions? Come on, keep them coming. I'll give you a sticker. Another one.
Wow.
Come on, kids love stickers. It's going to end up on the bumper of your car or your neighbor's car. You know that if you give it to your kids, right?
All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks, guys.
Is the demo done?
The battery died.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well.
That's okay.